Hooday to all those who are listening. Welcome back to another episode of Gridiron Jungle, a special edition. I know I open the podcast, or we open the podcast every week with a Hooday. We have a
Absolutely.
guest on here who might want to yell out a "Fly Eagles Fly."
Go
You know,
Birds.
nah, man, none of that is accepted on this podcast. This is a preview crossover fan episode. Feeling myself really haven't given it the proper name, but obviously I'm Kyron. Couldn't do this without my brother, my impeccable co-host Philly Phil.
Yes,
Ironic,
sir.
we can't call you Philly Phil this weekend. We're just gonna call you Phil. We're just gonna call you Phil, man, because we gotta take the Philly out of it, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Your two favorite Bengals fans back at it again with another episode of Gridiron Jungle. As I mentioned, we are not by ourselves. We have a special guest, my brother, someone I've known since forever. Late 90s, early 2000s, over 25 years of this brotherhood that we got going on. Anytime somebody who's been in your grandparents' crib, you can consider them fam.
Eight at your grandparents' crib.
8 at the grandpa, yeah, man, absolutely. Like family for real. Like there's no other word for it. But unfortunately, as many good things as I can say about the brother, he's also an Eagles fan. Mario, co-host of the Tunnel Vision podcast, which is also a sports podcast, is joining us to kind of talk about this Bengals Philly game that we got going on Sunday. Mario, how you feeling tonight, brother?
Yo, I'm feeling amazing. I can't wait for this game. Like y'all don't understand how hype I am about this game.
Absolutely. Us too, especially given where we are in the season for both teams. But before we even get into the real conversation, I do want to let the people know, or I want to give you an opportunity to let the people know about your Eagles fandom. How long have you been an Eagles fan? Let them know how deep this runs, because this isn't a casual. The Eagles won the Super Bowl a few years back, and I decided to hop on the bandwagon. I mean, Mario has been talking about Donovan McNabb being one of the best quarterbacks ever since '99, pretty much. Give the people an idea of your fandom, how deep it runs, what the Eagles actually mean to you.
Well, I mean, you kind of spoke on it, right? Like 1999 Bengals or the Eagles drafted Donovan McNabb. And if anybody knows me or have even had a conversation with me about the Eagles, I've been a fan of Donovan McNabb since he was at Syracuse. So I told myself when he was coming out in the draft, because the Bengals were terrible when we were growing up.
Oh, we know.
Only player that I even gravitated towards outside of Takeo Spikes was Corey Dillon. So I had no allegiance to the Bengals at all. And when McNabb came out, I honestly thought the Bengals were going to draft him. But he ended up getting drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. Andy Reid was like in his second year as a head coach. And he I ain't going to say single-handedly, but single-handedly helped turn that franchise around. And I've been an Eagles fan ever since. Like I can recall games like where I watched McNabb play at his best and even at his worst. Like I remember it was, and I'm ashamed to mention it, but I'll be honest with y'all because I'm comfortable with it at this point. But I remember watching the 2002 NFC Championship game, and McNabb. No, that was 2000 and yeah. So, but it was the 2003. I'm sorry, 2003, 2004 when they played. The Bucks won. It made me upset too. But 2002, 2003, or 2003, 2004 when they played the Panthers, 5 interceptions for Donovan McNabb. Like that was probably the most frustrating game. Ricky Manning Jr. got paid solely because of Donovan McNabb in that one game. And I remember, I think that's the only time I ever cried outside of the Sacramento Kings losing to the Lakers ever from sports. Like
shed tears, man. I love it. That's what we're here for. That's what this podcast was made for, people like you. Technically it was made for people like me and Phil, the Bengals fans, but we respect the fandom. Regardless of who you cheer for, when you have that deep level of fandom, it makes it fun. That's exactly why we wanted to have you on, because I knew it was that real for you. And I remember McNabb getting booed at the draft.
Yeah,
he got taken one spot ahead of where we took Achilles.
Yep. But you know why he got booed, right?
Why's that?
Because they wanted Ricky Williams.
Everybody did. Yeah, I remember that.
Right.
Yeah, they remember that. Philly fans said they only wanted Ricky Williams.
They quickly changed their tune, man. Donovan had a hell of a career. I'm sure we'll talk about more moments of fandom. But obviously, like I said, we are here to talk about this upcoming game. Once every 4 years, Mario, as you mentioned, the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Bengals. The Bengals lead the series 9-3-2. 2 of the last 4 games have ended in ties.
Yep.
Hopefully this one doesn't. The last game was September 27th of 2020, about a week after Mario's birthday.
Yep.
It was a 23-23 tie. I definitely remember that game. That was the end of the Dalton era. I don't know. That was Joe. Joe played that game.
Yeah.
Or was he hurt? Because Joe got that was COVID year. We played at Philly. I remember Joe took a mean hit. I forget who hit him. He took a mean hit. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that was T. Higgins' coming out party. Was it Fletcher Cox? And I believe T balled that game. I think that was his first big game as a pro. If I'm not mistaken. I don't know, Phil, if you remember that or if you can correct me. But if memory serves me correct, as y'all know, I do this all off the top. Definitely remember that. I remember the game before that. It was December 4th. Shout out to the good bros. 2016, where the Bengals beat the Eagles 32-14. And then prior to that, we also beat the Eagles 34-13 in 2012. So we've had a nice little run against them. Phil, how you feeling about this game coming up this weekend, brother?
I'm feeling good about the game overall. I do think that it is going to be a duel. I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think it's going to be a really competitive, close game. Kind of some contrasting styles between the two teams. And as you know, any boxing fan knows, styles make fights. So I expect a good fight.
Mario, what about you, man? Well, before you even talk about the game, how are you feeling right now about the state of your season? And I really want to know, as an Eagles fan, what are your thoughts on Nick Sirianni?
All right,
I'm very curious. I never asked an Eagles fan that, but yeah, what are your thoughts on Nick?
Well, I'll start here, right? So the first part of the question, I feel okay about the state of the season. Obviously, they've had some ups and downs. Like it's spots where they didn't look great. Like when they were playing the Browns, they didn't look good really that game until the end. First half, they looked like they always come out flat, right? And I even text you and said, I'm gonna tell you something that might shock y'all. The Eagles and the Bengals are almost the same team at this point. They almost the same team. Like, and this no disrespect, because I like Nick Sirianni. I do. Like, as an Eagles fan, like, and I think Eagles fans, they need, like, they are rough. Like, especially the ones in Philadelphia, like, they are rough. Like, you know, they threw snowballs at Santa Claus. Like,
they blew Santa Claus.
Yeah, like, and like, but that's Philly, right? Like, that's Philly fans. But Nick is, in my opinion, Nick is a good coach. I would have preferred if they still had Doug Peterson, just in all honesty.
Interesting.
Yeah, Doug is an immaculate coach. But I will say this, though. I think Nick Sirianni does a great job of managing the team. I don't think he does anything that's outrageous. I don't feel like he gets out coached a lot, but which I feel like that's similar to Zach Taylor, where Zach Taylor, I think he, like, in big games, he gets out coached, and that's why they lose. Like, so I think that's where they differ at. Like, both of the coaches are really good at managing talent that they already have. So both coaches have great elite talent on offense and are good at managing them. Now, when they get too involved, that's when the team starts to look bad. So I feel great about where the Eagles are. Obviously, it's things they need to clean up, but the reporters every week asking Jalen Hurts about, you know, his relationship with Nick Sirianni. It's just something that I feel like they do to stir the pot. Like, they're reaching a lot, and I don't think that Nick Sirianni is going to be. I don't think he's going to lose his job. I think a lot will have to happen for him to lose his job this year. Now, Zach Taylor, on the other hand,
Zach Taylor had to die to lose his job, unfortunately.
Yeah, the Bengals ain't gonna. Yeah, the Bengals aren't gonna make any kind of changes when it comes to that. We know the history of the Bengals franchise when it comes to coaching changes. Even it's always funny when we look back. I've been saying like the best moments are now, right? The moments that you're looking forward to that actually happening right now. We were all ready for Marvin Lewis to be up out of here. And now we look back, not all of us, a lot of us wanted him to stay. But he never got over the hump with that playoff win. And there are times when you look at it like, man, I miss Marvin. But yeah, that just goes to say, no matter what the fans say, no matter what people say, like the Browns aren't moving. The Browns / Blackburns aren't moving off. That's just what it is. So we might as well get used to Zach when it comes to that. I'll give my thoughts. That's a very interesting take about them being the same team. Obviously, the Eagles are sitting at 4-2 right now, with the Bengals sitting at 3-4. I think they're the same in the sense of not meeting the expectations that were set. It's funny, another podcast that Phil and myself listen to, he's recently been talking about that Super Bowl hangover, like how difficult it is being the team that lost the Super Bowl. There's only two directions to go. You either come back with a vengeance, similar to your, well, no, that's a different example. I'm not going to use that. But you come back with a vengeance, or you completely roll over and you kind of lose your identity of who you are. And we see the 49ers going through that right now. I know they have injuries. They have McCaffrey's out, what they weren't expecting. But they also look like a different team, right? And this is a team that's been to a couple Super Bowls under Shanahan and have not won. And that wears on you when you accomplish so much and yet you still didn't reach your goal. We've lost the Super Bowl. The Eagles recently lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. And I do think both of us are still trying to get back to that promised land, and not only do that, but the added pressure of actually getting the job done. Even though the Eagles did win their championship in 2017, the Bengals still looking for that first Super Bowl title, knowing you have the talent, but still falling a little bit behind. I think neither one of our teams wants to be in the position they're in, even with the Eagles being at 4-2.
Well, I do want to say something, right? So when I say they're the same team as far as like what they have right now, right? So you got two coaches who both a lot of people view as underperforming coaches, right? But they also have elite talent at quarterback and 2-star wide receivers. And you have, well, the running back position is a little different. I think Chase Brown is actually I think he could be a superstar in this league. Like Chase Brown has that level of talent. Like the breakaway speed is crazy. The burst of speed out of the backfield is something that, like, I remember it was the end of the Giants game when he broke the tackle and had the second burst. Like, it's not a lot of running backs in the league that can do that. So I'll start by saying that. But if you look at like the layout of the team, they are the same team. Like our defense is a little bit better, but the Bengals have played well in defense the past two games, right? So it's not the same, because obviously the Eagles. The difference is the Eagles have a better GM. Like, we can say that.
Hall of Fame GM, absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
So,
Phil, my fault. Go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead.
That's all that.
Phil.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, we're at the part of the season where they famously say no one's 100%, but we do have some injuries that we touched on last week from the Browns game. What are your thoughts on the injuries for both teams? Or let's start with the Bengals, Mario. I'll let you address the Eagles, but injuries for the Bengals and how that might affect what we see on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the injury that I think should cause concern for fans really is just the Orlando Brown injury. Sounds like he obviously is going to be questionable for the game, which is, interesting, but he is trending in the right direction. It definitely sounds like, even though Geno Stone is questionable as well, that he is going to actually play. I don't know how much he'll play, if he'll have his normal workload or if they'll split snaps or even give a majority of snaps to Jordan Battle. But those are really the only two injuries that the Bengals are facing right now. Obviously, if Orlando Brown Jr. can't go and you have to start Cody Ford, that will create some issues because even though the Eagles defense hasn't been great, they do still have, a formidable pass rush over there that can take advantage of Cody Ford. That's for sure. So definitely hope that Orlando Brown can get out there and give us something because like I said last week, I don't think Cody Ford should be rostered, but he's liked.
Mario, I saw, if I'm not mistaken, Dallas Goedert is dealing with some injury stuff. I don't think he practiced today or yesterday.
He's not gonna play.
Got you. Is that the only main injury that the Eagles have right now? Is there anybody else that concerns you as far as the injuries affecting the game this Sunday?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Fred Johnson is going to be starting for us, right?
Yes. I think Mekhi Becton is. I don't think it's going to play. So if we get to see our old friend Fred Johnson, I'm gonna be very Trey will be very excited.
Yeah. So I mean, that's really my only major. That's really my major concern. Like Dallas Goedert, that hurts because he is a Pro Bowl caliber, All Pro when he's healthy, tight end, and that makes a big difference. However, one thing that I do like here is the simple fact that the Eagles still, they run the ball a lot to the right anyway. Lane Johnson is that's our workhorse, like on the offensive line. Like as long as he's able to play, I'm okay. Like I don't necessarily care that Fred Johnson's there as long as he can give Jalen enough time to get through the first read, I'm okay. Because after the first read, Jalen taking off anyway. So that's how I honestly feel. Like I don't think it's too much concern there. Like a lot of people would be, but I think they'll be fine as long as they find a way to establish the run against a Bengals defense who actually is not that great against the run, as we saw in the Baltimore game late. But if they can establish the run early, it'll open up the passing game for them. So I expect a very big game for Saquon Barkley. And I know the Bengals, they like to do this thing where they rush. They do like the exotic blitz with Mike Hilton. So if they do that, I expect for the Bengals or the Eagles to go 3 wide, and we see a big dose of Jahad Dotson this week.
And real quick, I will give some pushback to that. The Bengals defense actually has been good against the run. We held Cleveland to 77 yards rushing. And Nick Chubb's return was something they wanted to take advantage of. Held Derrick Henry to 40 yards until that big run in overtime. The Giants had a decent game running the ball against us, but overall the Bengals have been good against the rush. And as they've gotten healthy over the past 2 weeks, they've just gotten better overall. Granted, that was against Cleveland and New York. And Philly, obviously, with a player like Saquon Barkley, will pose more of a threat. But yeah, I definitely think I don't know if Saquon will have the game that people think he will have. I do expect him to find the end zone, but I don't know if he'll have those big explosive plays that you're used to seeing from Saquon. So,
I honestly, I think he gonna rush for $1. So, I'm just giving you my honest opinion.
That's
for sure.
That's what we're here for. You're supposed to. That's
Absolutely.
I wouldn't expect anything less. I'm curious in that same vein, Phil, and I'm going to ask you the same question, Mario. Is there anything that you see that the Bengals should be taking advantage of? Are there any matchups that you see like, we definitely win this matchup, and if we take advantage of it, we should be walking out with a win? Is there anything specifically that you're looking forward to see from a strategic standpoint when it comes to those specific matchups? I know the one off the top of the brain, which you'll probably say, but I'll let you go ahead and say it.
Oh, for me?
No, for Phil.
Oh, you were asking me. Yeah.
It's the Bengals. We ain't never gonna listen. It's a Bengals pie. I'm never gonna start with the guests.
You gotta treat your guests right. But I honestly, I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but I don't think there's an answer for Jamar or T in that secondary. The names are great. I love Darius Slay. I love CD. But I just don't see it. I don't think, and no one's yet to stop the combination of Jamar and T. They're rolling. I mean, they're both playing like top 10 receivers in the league. If you look at, I don't care what charts, what stats you decide you want to pick and skew and move around, those two guys are it. So, I mean, Jamar Chase leads the league in practically every receiving category outside of targets. So that makes it even that much more impressive. But since T has been back, he's been out playing Jamar. You and I, Rich, have talked about that. So I don't think there's an answer for either one of those guys. So as long as Zach doesn't get in the way and be too conservative, then I expect a big game from those two. So that's the only place I think we have an advantage. Our run game has been inefficient. We've had a couple big plays here and there, but overall has been inefficient. So you would like to see improvement there because we have been relying on the pass as we typically are because it's our strength. But I mean, we got to take advantage of what we, what advantages we have. So I get it.
Mario, same question for you. Is there something that you look at as an Eagles fan and somebody who studies the team? You're looking at this matchup and you're like, "Ooh, if we take advantage of this matchup, we have a real good shot of walking out of Paycor Stadium with the win."
Absolutely. And whoever's guarding AJ Brown, whoever they put on AJ Brown, they got it 1K out. Hey, 1K out a day. That's all I'm telling you. Like, first of all, and there's no disrespect to Cam Taylor-Britt because I think he's actually a decent corner. But if they got him on AJ Brown, it's not gonna fare well for him. I don't think he's that great in coverage, which is already gonna be a disadvantage for him. But even to hit him, like, this ain't no small guy. Like, AJ Brown is 220-pound wide receiver, and he not like Cam Taylor-Britt. Like the hit that he had against Nelson Aguilar in the Ravens game, amazing. Like, lowered his shoulder on him. He lowered his shoulder on AJ Brown. He might fall. So I think that's the best matchup that they have, honestly. But the Eagles what they have to do is establish a pass rush, and they have to get to Joe Burrow. They have to make him uncomfortable very early, because if he gets in the rhythm, like if you saw in that Baltimore game, which the Bengals should have won that game, but Zach Taylor lost them that game. But that's it's a different story for a different day. But if he gets going early, like, it might not fare too well for the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously being a team that's really relying on their run. It's when you're relying on your run like that, you're not built to come from behind. And if they can get to Joe early, that means that they can force turnovers. And when the Bengals turn the ball over, like, what is it, 2 or more times this year, then they usually end up losing, right? So,
yeah. So I'm glad you said that, because there was a stat that I heard today that blew my mind. It's hard to really fathom it. The Eagles' defense has only forced 2 turnovers this entire season, which is insane to me. Is that a concern for you? Obviously, it is a concern, Mario, but how do you feel about that? Do you feel – all right, let me ask you in a direct way. If the Bengals walk out with no turnovers, do you feel like the Eagles win that game?
No.
So you're relying on getting the ball back and limiting opportunities in order for y'all to get a win.
I'm telling you, and this is just me being honest, right? That's me being honest. If the Eagles are going to go in and win this game, it's 2 things I'm expecting from them as a fan, right? It's 2 things that I think that they need to do this weekend to win this game. Create turnovers and win time of possession. They do those things. If they do those things, you win this football game. Now the secondary is not good. Like, and honestly, I'm gonna tell y'all this, and yeah, I mean, it's probably not something y'all think about, but as an Eagles fan, watching this organization over 20 years now, over 25 years now, shit. But whenever this team is in whenever they've had a 3-4 defense, like a 3-4 base defense, they've never had a really good team. I'm just being honest. They like the team is not built to run out of a 3-4. Like certain teams can, like Baltimore can, Pittsburgh can, because those teams are just built to they scout, they are built, and they've naturally always run 3-4 defenses. The Eagles need to run a 4-3 base defense. I don't know why they hired Vic Fangio, but they did. But Robert Slay is now out of a job, so maybe next year they go get a new defensive coordinator. But we talking about right now, they can get exposed in the secondary because of that. And if the Bengals do end up using Yoshivash? If they end up using him, which I think he can be an effective piece in this game, because he's a matchup nightmare against those linebackers. So if they insert him into the game and he gets at least 4 receptions and over 40 yards receiving, the Bengals probably walk away with this game. If the Bengals are smart.
That's something that Phil and myself talked about last week. Even though we got the win in Cleveland, it was a little bit concerning that Yoshi only had 1 target the entire game. Obviously, we only threw the ball, I believe, 25 times, Phil. So it kind of it makes sense when you look at the overall numbers. We weren't slinging it around 35, 40 times. But you do want to see him a little bit more involved because, as we mentioned, T opens up everything for the offense. He opens up everything for Jamar. Yoshi's going to open up everything for both of them. You can't guard both. You can't double both of them. And if you try, then I think Yoshi can burn you. So I agree with that. As someone who watches the games, I would love to see Yoshi get more involved in the passing game. And I think that it could have a big result. Like you said, 4 catches, 40 yards, some crucial third down conversions. I think if we make that happen, I have a hard time seeing us walking away without this. Phil, same kind of question poses to you. Is there anything that concerns you about this week when it's like, man, if we don't take advantage of this, or if they expose us on this, it's going to be a hard time for us walking out of Paycor with the win?
Yep. The main thing is just hitting on what you said. If we don't take advantage of, and you brought up a good stat with the Philly only forcing 2 turnovers this year. Philly hasn't scored in the first quarter the entire season. So if there's any game that a fast start was important for the offense, it's this game. Mario said it earlier, this team doesn't want to play from behind. So you got to take advantage of a team that, going into what are we in, week 8? Yeah, going into week 8 that hasn't scored a single point. Not a touchdown. They haven't scored a single point in the first quarter all season. So you got to take advantage of that. And I think if the Bengals if we get off to a slow start and just kind of allow it to just be a slow back and forth, there's no points really scored in that first quarter, and let the Eagles get comfortable, I think, that'll take some of the energy out of the fans, and then you lose some of that home field advantage. And I really don't want to see that happen. So really want to see them take advantage of that. I want to see them take advantage of Becton being out. Obviously, I don't know how to pronounce the other starting tackle's name that's on IR, but got to take advantage of Philly's 2 starting tackles being out. And you just got, even though Philly is trending in the right direction, I still don't think they're playing their best ball. So you got to take advantage of that as well. So hopefully, this defense that we've seen over the past 2 weeks continues to show up, and not the defense that was missing tackles and that sort of thing, because Saquon Barkley will definitely take care of that. So, Mario talked about Philly winning the time of possession battle. Rich, you and I have talked about how bad the Bengals have been at that. So I don't think we'll win the time of possession, but I think it's important to try to keep it as close as possible. But we definitely got to take advantage of hopefully getting a fast start this week and taking advantage of that soft secondary. So
you hit the nail on the head, Phil, right there. It's funny because this is one of those weeks, and it's going to sound weird to say it. I'm not concerned as much, and I've been saying it every single week about establishing the run. getting that time of possession. But to what you just said, Phil, as long as we keep it close, we don't need to win the time of possession, but we do have to keep it close because I want to take advantage of that secondary. I want us to. I'm not upset if we throw the ball 40 times. Now, I will be upset if we're throwing it because we're playing catch up. I want it to be like, let's set the tone and then let's establish the run. Let's pass first. I'm usually run first, set the tone, establish the flow of the game, and then take your opportunities because of the run game, an effective run game. I just personally don't think, especially if we come out running inside zone like we have been, that's the strength of the Eagles' defensive line. I don't see that going anywhere. So I don't want to get in, and I mentioned this earlier. I don't want to see ourselves getting in 2nd and 8, 3rd and 7s like that. It's not going to be a good game for us. I'm not saying we're going to lose. It's not going to be a good game plan if we go into those situations in that same vein. So I do think we need to take advantage of those quick hits, those quick throws, quick catches, those quick screens, all of that. Let's get into the 2nd and 6. Let's get into 3rd and 3. And on the flip side, let's stop them from getting into 3rd and short. All right. That was one big thing for the beginning of the season that was an issue. Right. Our defense was constantly 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, and just grinding the clock away. And it's like, all right, we got to get the defense off the field. That's why, say what you want. I'm not going to say the team name, but there's a team who's a rival of ours that plays in the AFC West who's not as explosive as they have been. But we definitely need to go ahead and make sure that they do a great job of making sure that they keep their defense off the field, and they have an elite defense. All right, so I want to ask both of you this. Let's just go through the 3 phases of the game, and I want to know who you think has the advantage. Bengals offense versus Eagles defense. Who has the advantage in that matchup?
Bengals offense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just think it's just simply because our strength is our wide receivers and their weakness is their secondary. I think it's just that matchup piece, but on the flip side of that, I think we'll be having similar issues. So
what do you think about, absolutely. With that and the turnover thing we just discussed, what do you think about in the run game? When you look at the Eagles rushing offense versus the Bengals rushing offense against the Eagles rushing defense, how about that advantage?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it really comes down to us calling the right run plays, right? We've talked about that the past few weeks. So, I mean, I think there's some potential there. Do I believe that it's going to be a strength for us? I can't say that I do. So,
I think that the Eagles rush defense is like they own that matchup. But the sneaky part about it is if Cincinnati's smart, they run a lot of screen plays early and often. If they're smart. But I mean, we'll see what they dial up. But if we're talking like just straight up run game, it's Philly's defense.
Understood. Let's reverse that. Philly's pass offense against the Bengals pass defense. How do you see that matchup shaking up? Who do you think has the advantage?
Philly's got the as far as the wide receivers go, yeah. It's right now it's too much inconsistency in the secondary for the Bengals. I mean, mostly I guess due to injuries, but it's almost like they keep like rotating corners. The only consistent player is Cam Taylor-Britt.
He's been consistently inconsistent.
I was gonna say that's saying something this season. Absolutely, Phil. What do you think? You agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that assessment. So, I mean, I think our secondary is going to have the opportunity to prove otherwise, but, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
And I think all 3 of us can probably agree on this next one. Philly's rushing offense against the Bengals rushing defense. Phil mentioned it earlier. Bengals rushing defense has been better, especially as our front line has gotten healthy. B.J. Hill, Sheldon Rankins. I know Chris Jenkins still dealing with his thumb. But the rotation has gotten a lot nicer. Hubbard has been more consistent these past couple of weeks. However, this is more so to say about Saquon. And the biggest thing that I was upset about coming into this game, I would have much rather caught Philly coming off that Cleveland game versus them steamrolling an opponent. I don't care if it is the Giants. We just played the Giants and we didn't play them like that. Now, obviously, there's a lot of emotion that go into it. You have Saquon's return back to MetLife, and the whole nine. So that plays into it. Hopefully, it plays up to it to a point where this is more of a letdown for them. But I just think that the way they're rolling on the Saquon, where would they be? I'm going to ask you directly, Mario, where would the Eagles be right now without Saquon Barkley? Would you say he's the MVP of the season so far?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the makeup of the team, right, it's a reason that they constantly ask, what's the identity of the team? What's the identity of the team? Obviously, you got Jalen Hurts, who just got paid franchise quarterback money, but you got Saquon Barkley, who comes in to the Eagles and is single-handedly saving them. If you watch the New Orleans game, the offense couldn't do anything. Next thing you know, third quarter, Saquon just starts going off. You know what I mean? And a lot of it's due to him breaking tackles and having the ability to change directions like that. But it's also the Achilles heel of the team, right? Like, you start becoming so reliant on your run game, you lose the other phases or other identity of the offense, right? Which is the ability to pass, which Jalen Hurts over the past 2 years has been very inconsistent in the pass game.
Understood. Special teams. Phil, excuse me. No Philly this week. Phil, special teams matchup. Who you think wins that between the Bengals and the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a great performance from our special teams last week. I mean, in general, I think we have one of the better special teams units in the league. Very well coached. Darren Simmons is one of the best. I believe we have the upper hand there. We had we've been solid in the return game the entire year. So kind of overall. So I expect more of the same. Obviously, if you're just talking about special teams in general, I don't look forward to punting a lot, but the reality is we will. And Ryan Rico has been a weapon in that aspect. Probably the best punter in the league, at least top 3. So I'd probably give the edge to the Bengals there as far as special teams. And you can't not talk about Money Mac, but the Eagles have a great kicker on the other side there as well, who was drafted by the Bengals. So Bengals pick good kickers.
Absolutely, man. Mario, what about you? Do you agree with that assessment? Do you think the Eagles win that special teams matchup? What are your thoughts on that?
No, when I look at it, I mean, like you said, I don't think it's a doubt about it. As of right now, if we're talking about right now, through the first 8 weeks of the season, the Bengals have the best punter in the league. And I think in a game like this, field position is crucial. So, but that's why I said, if the Eagles have to dominate the game and the time of possession. This is one of those crucial things. And people can look at the records and standings and be skewed. We just talked about this on our podcast on Tunnel Vision. Shout out to my co-host Eric.
Shout out to E.
But when you look at the breakdown just overall of the team, the Bengals are, and people can say what they want, the Bengals are the probably the 4th best team overall in the AFC. If you look top to bottom, I mean, yeah, you got Baltimore, you got Kansas City, but after that, it's kind of a toss up, right?
You putting the Steelers ahead of the Bengals right now?
I mean, they have a better record, but you know what I mean. But that's also who have you played, right? That makes a difference. So and the Eagles have a winning record, but also I'm surprised that they have won some of the games that they were able to, right? Like the New Orleans game, didn't know how that was going to turn out because at the time New Orleans was hot. They just blew Dallas out, but the Eagles found a way to keep it close and win the game. Now, on the flip side of that, a game like this, I'm sorry, but the Saints were nice, but it's real different when you got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase out there you got to worry about. And then Chase Brown, who I think is, probably one of the most explosive players in the league right now. And Yoshivash.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, Yoshivash is really probably the X factor here in this game, like we spoke about earlier. And if they really find a way to get the ball rolling in full motion early, I don't think the Eagles can can withstand that type of turmoil on offense.
I'm glad you mentioned Yoshi being the X factor because I want to ask both of you, who is your X factor for your team? So Phil, do you agree with Yoshi being the X factor for the Bengals? And Mario, I want to know who you think the X factor is going to be for Philly in order to win this game. Phil, we'll start with you.
I'm gonna say that I think we might see a reemergence of Mike G. I think Mike Gesicki, Mike Gritty. Yeah, Mike Gritty is gonna be the X factor this game. So I'm looking forward to the tight ends getting back involved in the game plan this week. I don't know if you saw any of the press conferences, but they were like the game plan's been pretty heavy for T and Jamar. And Zach said you got a problem with that. So I expect to see some more variance this week as far as spreading the ball around. I'm sure that will include some more targets to Yoshi. But this team used the tight ends a lot over the past couple of seasons, so I expect them to kind of weave that back in. So I'm gonna go with Mike Gritty as my X factor this week.
Nice, Rio. What you think?
All right, can I actually say two things here?
Yeah, you can say yeah, absolutely.
All right, so first and foremost, the X factor is Jalen Hurts, and what I mean by that is Jalen Hurts has to play mistake-free football. And if you watch the Eagles, he doesn't do that often, and that's why he's often criticized. So, like, Jalen Hurts is the X factor, and I know you got AJ Brown, you got Devontae Smith, and even Jahad Dotson, who they made the trade for. And we've yet to really see a game where he's had his game, but Jalen Hurts is first and foremost the X factor. Second phase, the X factor on the other side of the ball, defensive front. They got, like I said earlier, they got to establish pressure on Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow, when he's under pressure, he tends to make a lot of mistakes, and they have to force the ball out early. Because if you give him too much time, if he's not the second best quarterback in the league, he's the third.
Yeah, and absolutely.
And that's just the reality of it. It's nothing to take away from the secondary, but they can establish a good pass rush and make Joe uncomfortable early. The Eagles can create turnovers and win this game.
So I have there's a couple things that go through my mind. The first X factor I had in my mind was Karras, Volson, Captain. Those three in particular on the O-line. I mean, of course, if Orlando doesn't play, or even if it does, Cody Ford, that's going to be important. But those three, and specifically the interior of our offensive line against the interior of the defensive line of the Eagles, that's going to be the most important factor. You just mentioned if Joe has time, I think we're in good shape. But true overall, who I really think is going to set this game up, if Logan Wilson leads the team in tackles, then we win this game. I want Logan Wilson to be flying all over the place. I think the past few weeks, Jermaine Pratt has been outplaying him. And shout out to Jermaine Pratt. I'm a fan of his. Obviously, he's been doing what he does for a while now. But if the Cowboy can get going and really meet Saquon in those holes, that the defensive line can actually take on those blocks to free up our backers, and Logan Wilson's meeting Saquon in the hole, tackling on the first tackle, no extra yardage. Once again, that's going to be the big determination between 2nd and 8 and 2nd and 6. You know what I mean? 3rd and 6 between 3rd and 2. If Logan Wilson is playing to that speed and that level and takes it personally that I'm going to be the one that takes this Saquon assignment seriously, I think that we are going to be in good shape when it comes on the defensive side of the ball, because I think Trey's going to do what he does. And I think we're going to find a way. I think Lou's going to find a way to generate pressure from other angles. So I think we'll be pretty good to go. So that's going to be an X factor. A couple of things before we get out of here. One, Mario, we'll start with you. This we will lead the guests with. Do you have any favorite past Bengals versus Eagles moments? You kind of told one off air. I don't know if you want to use that one again. Your experience being on the field, but do you have any moments from past games that you really just enjoy and appreciate?
See, Past games where the Eagles played the Bengals. Well, I'll tell you this. I went to the game in 2016, and it's not one of my favorite. Obviously they got steamrolled, right?
Yeah.
I left the game early and everything, but if I had to say my favorite memory,
just say it don't got to be favorite. Just something that comes to mind about a past game or fond memory, anything like that.
Yeah, no, and I do. Even in 2008, I told you the story about the chance where the opportunity to meet Donovan McNabb, but he didn't come over to the sideline, so I never got to meet him. But I will say this: when at that same game, after the game, I did meet Deshaun Jackson. It was his rookie year. He came over. Yeah, he came over. He spoke to some fans. It was some Eagle fans who stayed after. But he came over and spoke to everybody. And then it was a linebacker on the team named Tracy White. And I don't know if anybody remember him, but he played a lot of special teams. But he gave me his glove, and I still got his glove to this day.
Listen, I love that. I don't care how old I am. When you're a fan, you're a fan, and there's those moments of fandom. I think one thing that you said, and I know you personally, but one thing you said off air, is how you don't look at these people as far as like from an you're not idolizing them because of their talent. You're just really a fan of the team, you're a fan of the franchise, everything else. And I think stuff like that is cool when you can have those memorabilia. I got a helmet, I got signed hats, I got all types of stuff. Just because I'm such a Bengals fan. None of the people play for the Bengals anymore, but it's just a special memory. Phil, anything that stands out to you in past Eagles versus Bengals games that you just hold fond or near and dear, or think are cool, whatever the case is?
If I'm being honest, no. But I do look forward to something being made this weekend. Yeah, I go with that. But no, I don't. I really don't. The only thing that really sticks out to me is the last 4 matchups, 2 of them being ties. Every time I think of us versus the Eagles, that's the only thing I think about is ties. To play. I mean, over the past 4 times for 2 of those to be ties, like that's just crazy. That's like the roulette hitting green. That's just come on, like.
Speaking of green.
No doubt, man. For me, I'm gonna keep it real simple. I thought about 2020, more so T. Higgins coming out, just seeing where we are now and just seeing it like kind of all come together that game. I don't have the stats in front of me, but he balled out. And the other one, just because I have his jersey, I'm a fan, and this is something I should have prepared for before we started recording the crossover. As far as like maybe talking about players that played for both teams at some point. But 2004, Jeff Blake spent 1 year with the Eagles. He had to end up coming into that game, and I think his first pass was a pick 6 to Robert Geathers. And I just appreciate it. And I think that made the score either made the score 17-3 or 24-3 after that pick 6. And obviously that's a game that we ended up winning, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the final score off the top of my head. I think I still have it pulled up. Let's see if it is. I guess it would have been 05 because it was January 2nd of 2005. So right as the new year passed. But excuse me. Yes, we won that game 38-10 at Philly. So shout out to them. Thank you for that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. I think it's been a great conversation. Mario, this has been our first crossover episode, first fan episode. So we appreciate you coming on, sharing your insightful knowledge. It is going to be 62 degrees and sunny on Sunday. Everybody, please take some time. Make sure you go to wherever you get your favorite podcast. Subscribe to the Tunnel Vision podcast. Mario and Eric, shout out to E. Walker. Eric is someone I've known since I was a child. We played for the Hilltop Hawks together. So it's always love anytime I see him. Mario, I've already talked about that being family. So please go out and support these, man, if you enjoy his takes, man. Obviously, you can tell that you do this a lot because there's some very insightful takes and very knowledgeable. And we appreciate that because that's exactly who this podcast is made for. But before we let you go, we got to get some predictions before we get out of here. I mentioned 62 and sunny. What's up, Mario?
Can I just say 3 things, real quick things? Right?
Absolutely.
Three quick things before we go into the predictions. So 04-05 season, the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, and that was 20 years ago to this year. And I'm just saying, history always finds a way to repeat itself. So I'm gonna let y'all hold on to that. But also, my favorite.
We'll meet y'all there.
My favorite Bengal ever played for the Eagles, and one of my favorite Eagles ended up playing for the Bengals, right? Which is crazy when you're talking about crossover. But Takeo Spikes, my favorite Bengal of all time, found his way coming to Philly later in his career. Yep. And then Dhani Jones later in his career ended up coming over to Cincinnati.
That's right. Shout out to Dhani, man.
I love that.
Shout out to the bros.
No doubt, man. Mario, we'll start with you. Predictions for the game. Let's get a score. How do you think this game shakes out on Sunday?
Oh, well, it's when I think long and deep about it, I'm taking this game to go into overtime. No ties, though. I'm taking Philadelphia in this game, 27-24.
Phil, what you got for me, brother?
I like it, man. That's really close to my prediction. I don't have it going to overtime, but I do have the Bengals winning 27-23 in a close one there. So, yeah.
I promise I had this written down already. I'm going to be a point above Phil. I see it being 28-23. Bengals coming out with the win, no overtime. Obviously, with that score, you can't have an overtime. But we get the job done in regulation. I think this is going to be the moment of the season for the Bengals. And what I mean by that is this resets everything. This starts you back at 0-0. It takes a lot of that pressure of digging out of the hole. We go in this week. We get the job done. We're 4-4. We're right back in the mix. I agree with what Mario said. I think we are a top 4 team in the AFC. Unfortunately, 2 of the teams are in our division, and they have a great record. So it's going to be a little bit of hard work trying to win the division and get that home playoff game. But the wild card is 100% in play. I think the AFC is open. The Chiefs are obviously undefeated, but they're not a good team. They find ways to win, but they don't put the fear in other teams like that. Listen, we should have beat the Chiefs. I'm going to stand on that. I'm going to stand by that. I don't think there's a team in the NFL that plays the Chiefs better than us. So I'm welcoming that matchup if it comes to it. What's up, Mario? What you got to say?
I agree with that, but they just got DeAndre Hopkins.
I don't care about that. It helps them. That's no diss to DeAndre. It helps them. It gives them something that they need. I'm a firm believer in mid-season trades. They don't always pan out the way you want. I think there's that chemistry and that familiarity that you have to get there. It's going to take a couple weeks. Yeah. I don't see it as a loss to the Patriots and putting up historic numbers. Obviously, D-Hop is past that point of his career, but I think it will be beneficial to have that possession receiver. Like I said earlier, Andy Reid does a great job of knowing that the strength of his team is his defense. We're going to give our defense as much rest as possible. Them not having Pacheco is, I think, I'm actually, I don't like to do this often, but I want to give them a compliment. Not them. I want to give Andy Reid a compliment for just knowing how to coach. It seems like coaching is a lost art, and knowing how to plan week to week for what your team needs to win that week, not necessarily just saying this is what we do and we're going to stick to it. He has very specific game plans, and I think he's brilliant when it comes to that. However, he does not strike fear in me. I definitely think when that time comes, we have their number, but that's neither here nor there. This is a Bengals podcast. Enough compliments to that team in the Midwest. But I definitely think 28-23, Bengals get this win. We go to 4-4, and I think we get start making our way above 500 after that. And I'm looking forward to everything that comes past this game. But we got to take care of business on Sunday, and most importantly, we have to. It's embarrassing almost that it's going to be October 27th, and we have yet to get a home win. Mm-hmm. We got to do that. And I said this before, Phil and myself have been to the last 2 games, which have both been on the road. We traveled to New York, it's technically Jersey, and we also traveled to Cleveland. Paycor different, man. I'm telling y'all. Been going to other stadiums. I'm telling you, the energy in there. I'm not obviously Philly is his own thing, but we're not playing at Philly. But being on the road to these other cities, you feel the energy in Paycor. It's a difference by how we cheer this team on. We as fans deserve this win. And I'm looking forward to getting it. Whiteout game, gonna be decked out. Eagles out here playing in our face, trying to wear their white pants, but it's cool. We gonna matter of fact, I'm going 31-23 just because of that. Stop playing with us, man. But that's it. Any last words from you two before we get out of here?
Last words from me. Bengals are undefeated in their white Bengal uniforms, 4-0. So looking to go ahead for the 5 fingers to say something to the face. So looking for them to keep that going. Also, I hate that I buried this to the end, but as a twin parent, I'm really excited to see Chase Brown versus Sidney Brown, the twins who were drafted in the same draft class last year, 3rd and 5th round respectively. Really excited to see those two go against each other. Chase Brown, the explosive Bengals running back, and Sidney Brown, I really like him, dynamic safety for the Eagles. So yeah, I'm really excited to see that matchup. Hopefully they get to meet each other in a hole somewhere.
Hopefully Chase runs them over. Mario, any last words before we get out of here?
Yeah, last few words here. Jalen Carter, I think, is gonna make a huge impact, and that's gonna be very crucial for the Bengals or for the Eagles to get some pressure on Joe Burrow for 1, and 2. I know you had some words to say about Darius Slay, right? But they also had words to say about him when he played against Justin Jefferson, who also went to LSU.
That's true.
And it's the best wide receiver in the league. While they are different wide receivers,
arguably,
they are.
Hold on, whoa there, boy. Don't go there, boy.
He's the best receiver in the league. But when I tell you, Darius Slay ain't no pushover. So I think all these words y'all had to say about the secondary being as soft as they are, y'all will see Darius Slay apply pressure on Jamar Chase.
I expect Darius Slay to get treated like Marlon Humphrey.
7-11.
I expect Darius Slay to
get
post
slayed
on his Instagram page the classic Adrian Broner meme. I ain't gonna lie, I'm getting cooked. So that's what I'm expecting. More importantly, man, it's gonna be a fun game. I know all 3 of us will be in Paycor on Sunday at 1 p.m. to witness it, to cheer on our teams, and that's what it's all about. Most importantly, hopefully everybody stays healthy, have a good competitive game, and most importantly, outside of the health, Bengals come out with a victory. So, Mario, we appreciate you for joining us, man. Can't tell you how much fun this has been. Thanks for hopping on with the late night. Phil, you already know what it is. My brother can't do any of this without you. Wouldn't imagine doing it with anyone else. It's been a lot of fun as we roll into week 8 and we're figuring this out. To everyone else out there, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting. We're going to have more things like this, more crossover episodes, bringing more fans from other teams to have these discussions. This was a lot of fun. Our first time having 2 episodes in 1 week. So shout out to y'all. If you're watching on YouTube, Phil had a little bit of technical difficulty, so if it looks a little darker and things like that, that's why. But thanks for sticking with us. Thank you for everything. We will be back next week with a brand new episode discussing the results of this game. Hopefully, Phil and myself have positive things to say. But besides that, I hope everyone has a great day. Most importantly, Who Dey?
Who Dey?
Go Birds!
We can't end on that. Who Dey?